I have begun to feel that there is a tendency in 20th century science to forget that there will be a 21st century science, and indeed a 30th century science, from which vantage points our knowledge of the universe may appear quite different than it does to us. We suffer, perhaps, from temporal provincialism, a form of arrogance that has always irritated posterity. J. Allen Hynek.
Good evening, Undertakers. I'm Tanya Gilroy, and this is Bill Bryan. In tonight's episode, we take you on an unplanned 2-night investigation of my house. So, we were supposed to do the Suscon Road Screamer and the Lady in White on Old Boston Road in Pittston, PA. And initially, that was our biggest plan because we reached out questions on the internet, wanting other stories and people's experiences. And my ex-husband came in to visit with the kids, and he knows Pittston very well. So we took him on board and made him show us the sights. And we were unfortunately very disappointed.
Yeah, on Old Boston Road, the train trestle where the Lady in White, it's gone. It's a parking lot now. There's a big building there. They turned into kind of a industrial facility. Mm-hmm. Like the road's gone. And
I think the bridge for the Lady in White, that's gone
completely.
So
we go down the Suscon Road for the Screamer,
and it was busy.
It was really busy. They've built up some industrial complexes on the road, and there was just traffic back and forth. Mm-hmm. We are going to try it again, but much later in the evening than we did this time around.
Yeah, but anyway, so not to waste an evening, and since it's, Mike hasn't been in state for a long time, I suggested, how about we go back to the house and, see if Mike can, if his presence may activate what has been haunting my house since I was a kid.
Yeah, and he seemed pretty interested in the Estes Method when we were talking to him about it. So he wanted to try it out. He wanted to go under the Estes Method. Sure, we'll go up in the attic. We'll do that. It'll be fun. Not thinking really anything of it. We weren't planning on doing a podcast on it. We were actually kind of scrambling as to what we were going to do this podcast on. And then stuff happened.
So before we really get into the meat of everything, a little background about my house. I don't know exactly the year it was built, but I do know that it was constructed by a Russian architect who not only built my house, but built a couple of the houses on block. It was purchased by my grandfather after he did his tour in the Korean War. And it's a duplex, which is common in our area, but for those who are not around the area, it's a double block, meaning it's two houses merged into one. And usually they're separated. My grandfather owned both sides. I don't know what year it was, but they were renting out the side that I currently live on, and there was a fire that not destroyed the house, but damaged it severely. Shortly after, he married my grandmother, and her and my mother moved in. My mother was pregnant with me at the time, and they kind of, they rebuilt the house, and they brought it back to its former glory. Growing up, I was always told ghost stories and hearing, what everyone experienced in that house. And there was always something there. I always felt something there. I remember going into rooms and feeling the heaviness and knowing I shouldn't be in there right now. turning around, walking out, and 5 minutes later going back in, and everything's fine.
Yeah, I never experienced that in your house until this past Saturday, which was one of the nights of this investigation. It was weird. Like you could physically feel a barrier going into your bedroom.
Yeah, and that was a common experience. That was something I never really saw apparitions, human apparitions or humanistic apparitions, but I've always felt something, and there was always, the best way to describe it, a darkness in my house. There was a lot of fighting between my mother and my father, and that always was like a dark cloud around. And just, it just always felt like, even though we had great times and wonderful memories in that house, there was always something hovering. And growing up, I was told certain things, and I remember I told you my grandfather used to see a pair of boots come down in the basement, a set of stairs appear, and a pair of boots coming down from them, turning around and walking back up. My mother has witnessed rocking chairs start rocking out of nowhere, and everyone in the house had a story at one point or another. Everything really didn't come to a head until I met Mike, who's my ex-husband, and he moved in, and at that time my grandmother was dying, and everyone literally just kind of went off the deep end. My grandmother was the glue to our family, so after her getting sick and passing away, my mother kind of just had a breakdown, and my brother had a breakdown, and I was newly pregnant, and Mike and I were, everything was just chaos. And from that moment forward, it just seemed whatever it was grew and fed and just absorbed all the negativity. And for the longest of time, it felt like a heavy, heavy weight constantly on your shoulders when you walked in that house. And there was many times where Mike and I would have a great day outside the house, come home, and we'd be at each other's throats. Or he and my mother would be at each other's throats. Or me and my mother. We're always fighting. Always that heaviness. And my depression was at the worst then. And then when, everything separated, we went on our way, and I tried to get better, and things kind of started dying down. And now it kind of feels like it's trying to rear its ugly head again.
Yeah, I know over the Christmas break when we were redoing your son's room, everything went wrong. It just seemed like, Murphy's Law was at its worst.
And that was a common thing. And I told you that when you first started. I said, the minor projects, I don't care if it's a leaky faucet, a wrench is not going to fix it. You're going to have to replace everything. Because in the house, now one, yes, it's an old house. Two, my grandfather was an old timer who believed duct tape fixed everything. But for the most part, nothing was ever, it's never a simple fix. It's always the worst possible scenario. A little leak turns into thousands of dollars worth of a project.
Going back to your son's room, with everything that happened, I got frustrated. With things were not working that should work. For instance, two of the when I was putting the floor in, it was the type of floor that locks into each piece. And as I was doing that, they just would not go together. And I got really fed up, and I didn't have any sage, so I grabbed a cinnamon stick. You can use a cinnamon stick. It's not as powerful as sage, but it helps. And I went and smudged the whole room, and as soon as I did that, everything went smoother. It was like I kicked out whatever was in there. Interesting side thing with that, I was listening to music while I was doing this, and the song Judas by A Perfect Circle came on as soon as I started smudging the room. And I just stopped. I'm like, oh, wow. Nice touch. You're still leaving, but nice touch.
And, yeah, I mean, those are, that's something, the children's rooms and stuff. Like I said, the house is old. It's in dire need of repair. Unfortunately,
Which we're slowly working on.
there was never enough money or enough time, and we were kind of living in chaos, and it's depressing when your home is unorganized and you're not living to your full capacity. That is depressing and that is frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm always coming home in a state of frustration, a state of depression, of helplessness. And then when you come in and you're like, I can do this, and you do it, and it's wonderful, it lifts all that weight off of me and off the kids too. It made them happier, made them more happier to be home.
Yeah, both kids have newly renovated rooms. We're planning on doing the outside of your house and the kitchen soon. And you even said it yourself. And this is very important for later on in this podcast as we get further into the story of what happened in the investigation. But you said it yourself that I bring you hope.
Yeah.
And things are better with me around. And between that and kicking it out of Qualin's room, which it seems to have been centered around, whatever this dark thing is does not like me.
It doesn't, because I feel like you don't bring problems. You don't bring anything that it can feed off of. You bring the opposite. You're starving it out, basically. And by us, renovating, which is a common thing when you renovate houses, sometimes you're stirring up activity.
It's funny you said starving it out, because we got some results that are along that line. So remember that. And we'll get back to that when we get to part 2 of night 1.
And my personal view is that Mike's a wonderful person. You met him.
Yeah. We get along really well. He's great.
He came into the marriage with his own set of problems and his own issues that he never resolved. I had my own, and my mother had hers. Now, mind you, we all lived in the house. My mother and my brother moved over my grandmother's side. Me and Mike, and eventually Qualin and Izzy were on my side, so we're always one unit.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just everyone had their problems. Everyone had their internal issues that no one was dealing with. And how can you help someone when you're in that same state?
We've mentioned a few times, but off air, that we wish that we had gotten together sooner. But as you're saying this, I'm kind of glad we didn't, because I had my own issues too. Everybody has their issues. Yeah. But I got mine pretty much squared away not too long before I met you, and I think that was a good thing. I think that needed to happen so that there was, a way to out of the dark thing in your house.
And I did too. At my very worst, I was literally contemplating suicide at one time. That was, it's sad to say when that option is probably the most comforting option you have. You should never be in that dark of a state to where ending your life is the most comforting thing. That literally wakes you up in the morning like, okay, I might not have to deal with this today. I have options. That should never be. That's horrible. Mm-hmm. But that was the state I was in for a long time. And a lot of the activity was very, very, very heavy at that time. So, I'm sure there's a psychological connection of a person's, their feelings and their emotional state, and the what is out there, what is beyond that veil, and how it reacts to you.
Right, exactly. And if you are suffering from anything of a similar nature, if you have any thoughts of suicide, please reach out to the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. It's 1-800-273-8255. I think that pretty much gives a good background of what's going on in your house. I know you also had the issue with Timmy, which you detailed in our episode 0, which was our introduction. Not our best episode by any means, but if you want to hear the Timmy story, go back and take a listen to it. She goes into detail with that.
I'm trying to honestly like the I always knew something's there. I remember being a little girl and always being afraid of opening the basement door and seeing a man standing at the bottom of the stairs. Now, mind you, I played in the basement tons of times, but it was always my initial reaction.
I'll tell you, your basement, out of every room in your house, your basement unnerves me the most. For the most part, your house doesn't bother me. The first time I went up to your second floor, that area right in front of Q's room kind of gave me the heebie-jeebies. And then last Saturday, your room definitely was off.
And the hallways always always made me fearful. I used to always think I was going to see something. At the bottom of our stairs is a mirror. And I used to always think I was going to see something through the mirror.
No, it's the only time I've ever really... So, when we were up in the attic that first night of the investigation, I didn't feel like we were alone up there. But that was the only time I've ever felt anything in the attic. But in the basement, I'd done a lot of electrical work at her house. And so I was constantly going down in the basement to turn power on and off. And every time I went down there, especially when the power was off, I didn't like it.
It's eerie. Well, we live in a coal mining area.
Yep.
Plymouth was a coal mining town. According to my grandfather, who is, deceased, he used to work in the borough, and he used to have maps of the layout of the land. And my house, from what I understand, is the last house sitting on solid rock. Everything above me is mines.
Right, yeah, your mom was saying that on last Saturday, that there's bedrock underneath your house. However, part of your backyard, there's mines underneath it. The house itself is
I know that was the only reason we were able to have
the pool.
The pool. We have an in-ground pool, and you can't dig if there's mines. So that's what I understand. I don't know. That's something I want to do. Is I want to look up the history of my house. I eventually want to go to the historical society and dig up.
They have the maps. You can see for sure.
Yeah.
But from what I understand, above you there's mines. To the east and west of you there's mines, and then below you there's mines. One of which being the Avondale mine, which is a mine that we are going to be investigating soon now that the weather's getting nicer.
So I'm like I said, there was always that heavy cloud. It wasn't always there. It comes day by day. Some days it's really bad. Some days it's barely there. But it was always a constant in my childhood and into my adulthood.
Yeah.
So that brings us back to this night where we're supposed to do the Suscon Screamer and the Lady in White, and we were really hoping to get good evidence and have a good story to tell, but it was literally a flop. It wasn't working. I mean, I think I kind of had that feeling the moment we started that it wasn't gonna.
We knew that was a possibility, but we wanted to try it anyway, and we figured that we could at least get a full investigation, and even if we got nothing out of it, but yeah, I mean, with the road being gone and all that, it just wasn't doable. It just wasn't,
And Mike is really interested in learning the techniques that we use, and he wants to start investigating himself in Texas. So we figured this is a great opportunity to teach him how to use the equipment, what he's looking for.
And when we talked about, okay, let's investigate your house, it was, well, we're just going to show Mike how to do the Estes Method. And then that turned into your kids wanting to do it, and then forcing you to do it. And then basically you and I going up my house where we had a little surprise visit, which we'll get into at the end of the podcast because that's a whole different story. And then Mike asked me to come over the next day and continue, do some more because you had work the next night.
But there was just something telling me to have Mike do it. Like it was like I don't know. The idea just popped into my head. Like, hey, how about we just go back to the house and try it? Like
he took to it like a fish to water. The moment he put the headphones on, he got voices coming through.
I will say this: during his living there, he lived at that house 15 years, and he experienced a lot more than I ever have.
Mm-hmm.
He experienced apparitions. I mean, he saw animals. Like I saw animals too, but he saw animals.
He saw you.
He saw me.
When you weren't there.
Him and my mother and my grandfather used to see me walking around, and when I was never there, I was out of the house. And Mike would see me when I was asleep, so he knew I was upstairs.
Still hear you calling when you're not
other mother. So Mike always had the most experiences.
Yeah, so it makes sense that he would connect more in the house. But enough talking about Mike. Let's talk to Mike. Tonight we have a very special guest, Tanya's ex-husband, Mike Gilroy. And he's going to be going through with us what happened in the attic, the living room, your mother's side dining room, and then the basement.
Hi, Mike!
Well, hello.
How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good, having a normal day down here in Texas.
So, you ready to talk about what happened in the attic?
Yeah, I'm good to go. Absolutely.
So before we start, I gave a little background about what I personally experienced growing up in the house, and a little bit what you and I went through. Do you want to give your insight from like the time you moved in?
Well, ever since I moved in there's always been just that, almost like just with the house alone, that foreboding. Like there always seemed to be some sort of like you never feel like you're alone in the house. There's always like almost like a pressure there, and it comes and goes. It's not a constant pressure, but it's you get that just certain overwhelming sense. And with older houses, you expect a chill here or there, but I've seen things since I've been there that made me believe that perhaps it wasn't just a cold breeze or an old house. So so I could tell you about the cat if you'd like to hear about that. That one was the most one of the most visual and strange things. So I went into the basement and I was working on one of the repairs, and I hear a cat meow, and it's down under the table I'm working at. And you feel the fur, and I was like, wow. And I look down underneath the table, and it's a white cat, big fluffy cat with a big poofy tail, and it's winding through the various wood and tools and stuff, and you can hear it brushing against it and pushing it. And it walked around me, and then I started following it, and I'm looking at the windows to see how it got in, and I was calling to it, and as I'm calling to it, following it, it walked through the basement to the doors where the two basements meet. And it walked right around the corner, and I'm still looking at the windows. The Bilko doors were shut, and it walked into the other basement. And as I followed it, I'm calling to it, trying to reach out to it, but it's just staying just out of reach. So, it was like it seemed friendly, and, it was brushing still against things. It, went in between a piece of wood and a bucket, and it moved the wood. And so I'm calling it, come here, And there was an old cot on the other side under a window, and again, no windows were open. I'm like, how did you get in here? Come here. And it jumps up on the cot, starts walking around in a circle, kneading the bed and going to curl up. And so I'm like, I figure, okay, well, it's going to let me pet it. And I reached over to pet it. And as soon as I got within reach, it vanished into a vapor. And I just felt the blood drain out of my body. And I took off. I didn't want to be there. It was just a very strange, unexpected. Nobody expects a cat to vanish into a mist. So I left.
I remember you coming upstairs telling me about it, and I told you that's probably Delilah, because before meeting you, I had a white cat and my baby, and unfortunately, she had a stroke, and she didn't do too well the last few weeks of her life. But that was the only white cat that we've ever had. That's ever been there. So, but how I also was explaining too was, I as I was saying, there was, unfortunately, you, me, my mother, my brother, we went through a lot. There was always that heaviness there, right? And there was always it seemed like whenever you and I were on a good page, something else was happening. Either it was the house itself that was causing problems, or my mother was having her meltdowns and my brother was having his meltdowns.
Yeah.
And then you and I had our problems too. And I always felt like, when you and I were out of the house and we had a good day and we got along good, remember we would come home and then we'd start at each other's throats. Like there was just something
the pressure would lift. Once we'd leave the house, we'd be gone as soon as you pull away. Especially if we were going on a trip anywhere, you could feel that. You could feel that pressure just lift, and it was gone. And then, as soon as you walk back into the house, like it's funny. It's right as you stepped into the first door, you just feel the weight, and all of a sudden, everything turns negative. Everything. It's almost like best way to explain it is the more fun and laughing we had out, the more pressure and intensity hit you when you walked back in.
Almost like it was trying to undo everything.
Yeah.
Like, oh no, we can't have this,
And it drained your energy. Like you would come home with the desire to do something, to anything, like, oh, I'm gonna clean a room or make a wonderful dinner or fix this, or
right.
something. And then you walk in and you're just done. You're just like, I can't do this.
Yep. And even pushing through it, then something would go wrong with the house. Like almost anything, how many hot water heaters do we go through, which, is unheard of. Like it's, we don't use excessive amounts of water, especially hot water. And all of a sudden the heater just blows out, you lose a pipe or, something would happen. And then there was the ethereal you, as I call her, it's just, I would go to sleep. I'd lay on the couch, fall asleep. And it happened a few times where I would just wake up, just having that feeling that somebody just sat on the end of the couch, and I could feel the vibration of somebody just plopping down, and I picked my head up, and there was it, and she looked just like you, and almost like the pale version, and the long hair, the sweater, the skirt, that that flowy skirt, and she's completely and entirely volumeless, no sound to her whatsoever, and she's so animated talking, and she looks like she's complaining and angry. And then I would sit up to talk, and she got up and walked away and went through the dining room, into the kitchen, and into the pantry. And as soon as she went into the pantry, she turned right and just vanished, as if she walked through a doorway there. And the second time that I saw her, she came walking. She almost like she just came downstairs, turned to me, still talking, like something is bothering her, something she's angry about. Turned, walked into the kitchen, into the pantry, turned right, and gone. Both those times it was, and you just feel that ice cold chill where it's like, wow, like, I just, like, what was that, And I'd even, the first time I went up and got you, and I'm like, hey, Tanya, is that you? What are you talking about? Like, I just saw you walking. You just came downstairs. You walked into the pantry and then, like, no, I wasn't downstairs at all, or, But things like that, the energy in the attic, the two swirling lights, one very just menacing, dark, and the other was it headed it off. I mean, it flew right at me, and the other one came right into.
Saw those in the attic?
Yeah, yeah. The one as I noticed it, it was swirling. It was, but it was glowing like a dark, almost, I want to say, blackish purple. And it's swirling in a way where it's kicking up dust and then just starts flying right towards me. And then a white one from the side immediately grabbed it in, halfway to me and swirled in a direction just past me. And you could feel the wind as the two of them are blowing at each other. They're just, I don't know. And then they disappeared up through the roof. It was, things like that, and I try so hard to, you want to brush it off and say, no, that's, my imagination.
I know I've been experiencing excessive night terrors for a while there too.
Yes.
And do you remember the typing? Do you remember always hearing the typing?
Yes. Yep.
Now,
like
we had a sun porch that was attached to the room, and at one time we had the bed out there. And so we had a curtain that separated the sun porch from the actual room. And at night, while we're in bed, we would hear typing, like on a computer.
Yep.
There was no one. The computer was in the room, but there was many times where all of us, and I didn't have Izzy yet, or maybe we did, but she was a baby. But everyone was in the bed. There was no animals in the room. So there was nothing logical to say, why is there tip tapping on the keyboard?
Yep.
And it was consecutive. It was like, it wasn't like a few keys. It was actually, it sounded like it was typing a story or something.
Steady rhythmic typing.
Very, yeah.
That'd be pretty creepy to wake up to.
Yeah, we heard it for a long time. Definitely a few months of consistent night. I'm trying to think of other things that we've all, like I said, it's just odd experiences.
Yeah, there was a lot. And, and then Q had a visit from Timmy.
Yes, he had a visit.
Who decided to move in with us for a little while there.
And I'm trying to, I'm trying to think of any other, aside from just that heavy cloud that was always there.
How about Shane and Pippi?
Oh, yeah. I forgot.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
What's his story?
Go ahead.
So, Linda had gotten married. And so Linda's Tanya's mom. And so, Linda met this guy, Brett. And he was probably such a negative person. He really was. And he seemed very happy and relaxed in the house, and he was over next door, on her side. And then the one night, and he was only there for 2 nights. So the first night he was there, they woke up to Shane coming into their room and talking animatedly without saying a single word.
And Shane was about 10?
12. Yeah, I think it was 12 at that time. And they saw Pippi come over. Yep, and she went into the room with them. And then they both turned and left. When they came over to check what he wanted or if he needed something, because it looked like, he really needed something. And he was sound asleep. And Pippi was also sound asleep until they came over and woke her up. But she got up, stood up, and
she was in the room with us.
Yeah, She got up, stood up when they started coming over. She was wide awake, at that point, watching them come, move. So she was very alert to hearing noises and stuff. And they insisted that Shane came over through the attic. But when he walked down the hallway, he turned into the room away from there on the other side. And that didn't happen because he never woke up. He was in the bed. He was in the bed sleeping still. So it's like the spirit takes on the form, that was the first time anybody had seen Shane do that. So,
and of course the kids here, generally me, but they have heard you call for them.
Yep.
But you call for you.
I have not experienced that yet.
And I remember one time we were downstairs. We're all in the living room. I think Q was having a sleepover or something. There was a reason for all this bunkering down in the living room.
Yeah.
And I remember I vividly heard something say Isadora. And Izzy was still a baby. She was probably like a toddler.
Yep.
And I remember looking at you and freaking out because I'm like, something's calling my child's name.
Right.
That was the only time I can say without a doubt, something spoke when there shouldn't have been.
Right. There should have been but there was nobody else there. How would,
Everyone was in one room at that time.
Well.
But the kids do hear me constantly. I mean, to this day. They'll hear me. They still come out of the room. What'd you want? What'd you want? I didn't say anything.
I've had my name called out too.
That side of it I've seen where you and I are watching TV in the living room and Q will come downstairs like, what'd you want? And you never called for him.
No.
I just haven't personally heard it yet.
I've had my name called to come upstairs.
Mm-hmm.
Well, your name got called a lot while we were doing this investigation. In just about every room, your name came up over and over again.
Yeah, that kind of unsettles me a little bit. Like, yeah,
We're gonna actually get into the investigation. We went over how initially we're gonna do the Suscon Screamer and the Lady in White, but how that kind of off. Unfortunately, it was not how you remembered it.
No, everything changed down there, and they once that industrial park moved in, they literally changed the entire layout of everywhere. The both of those roads are completely developed since the last time even I was down there. It must have been 7-8 years ago. So
yeah, but next time you're in, we're gonna go do some camping up there, and there's a couple other stories on Suscon Road that we could investigate.
there are, yeah. I'd love to do that. I'm actually really looking forward to that because, I mean, there's people who are giving eyewitness accounts of being chased off by something large, or seeing those lights over the just past the shooting range there. So I want to go see those. I'd love to see that. I think that would be amazing.
So, like I said before, that was a flop. And then I think I approached you and I said, hey, how do you feel about doing something at the house and doing the Estes Method? Because we've all tried it except you. You haven't had the chance to do it yet. And
yeah. I think the attic, because of your story of seeing the black and white balls of light up there.
Yes, yeah, that yeah. When you said it, I'd never heard of the Estes Method. I've never used it. So I thought, I mean, yeah, that'd be pretty cool. Mm-hmm. See what comes up.
And boy, did a lot come up.
Well, it really did.
So we get home, get everything taken care of, and we go upstairs and we set you up. What was your initial feeling of it? It's different for everybody. To me, I felt it was a very calming thing. To others, like I know our daughter Izzy, she gets kind of freaked out by it.
I get freaked out. Yeah. I feel like I'm so alone that it's quite terrifying.
So what was your initial feeling on that? Like, how did you feel? Aside from what happened, how did you feel just doing the method?
Well, I felt a little bit of nervousness, but kind of curious, excited to try it. And then as soon as I had the blindfold on, and then as soon as I put the headphones to my ears, as soon as they covered, I could hear immediately. You could hear some words coming through.
I believe
And
the first words were, "What are you doing?"
yeah.
And it's weird because typically most people take about 10 to 15 minutes under the Estes method before they really start getting good stuff coming through, because you have to go into that meditative state. With you, it was like immediate. It was crazy.
See, and the when you're and this was something after, like the afterwards we'll say, is I can be very single-minded about going into to do something or to get put to a task. And as I'm, single-mindedly going into it, I don't think of the other parts of it. I wasn't, and to explain that is to hear words and just, yell them out. But it was so disjointed for me because I was enjoying that, being in that, I like to call it the description, that the sea of gray, and it's that the constant sound when it immediately melts into that just open. It's almost like being in a wide open ocean, and I'm just right in the middle of it, and the only thing there are whatever words come through. And so it was coming out, but not being able to hear what anybody else is saying at the time. It's just like I'm listening for words, and then I say the words, but then hearing it after, how you guys are asking certain questions, and it explains this is why the words were coming out. This is what they were answering to, and that was incredible for me. That was amazing because, I didn't expect it. It being my first time doing that, it was, I'm just hearing words. So, I feel, wow, that's, it's not too spooky, but then
Sometimes stuff that you get, some stuff that really doesn't make sense. It doesn't, either you're not interpreting it correctly, or you're just getting words coming through that don't line up and all that. But sometimes you get stuff that really lines up really well, and you're clearly having a conversation with something else. And for most of the time that you were under, we got the latter. A lot of what we were getting from you when you were under was very coherent, made sense.
Mm-hmm. But that's the thing that they teach you is that, I think we told you before going under is that whatever you hear, call out. We'll figure it out, but don't hesitate. Even if you're not sure what it said, say, I think it said this or that. Because that's something that from our studies and research on it, it's encouraged. Some people won't say anything because they don't feel like they're hearing anything.
Yeah, and it's funny when you said that, just call it out. And inside of it, it doesn't make sense that you're saying at random because you're hearing you. So you, and then are, or we, or they, or a name, and they'll say a name. It's like, I just repeated everything that was said so that, because you can't hear anything around you. That with the noise canceling, you are complete. It's like you can't see anything, you can't hear anything other than what's coming through, and it doesn't make any sense to me. It makes zero sense.
It's supposed to hinder your senses so you can focus. You're focusing only on hearing and nothing external stimulating.
And by not knowing the questions, you're not going to subconsciously interpret what you hear to be an answer to the question. You just hear it as it is.
Yeah, and the ebb and flow while I was hearing it, like you can, and it's so odd to explain. It felt like others were coming close to say something and then moving away a little bit, and then coming close to say it and moving away. And you could almost feel like they're within a certain range, almost in front of you, but then it would come in from the side or from the back, or, and you would feel them. And that was interesting. I thought, wow, it's fascinating to be out there, and even though I didn't move, I didn't move an inch, but it felt like I was in constant motion while under that. And in the attic, it was I would say an overall pleasant experience. Like it felt,
Yeah, there was definitely some things that really stood out. I'm looking over the transcript now. I don't think we need to go fully over it because we have the audio. But it did bring up your name a lot, Mike.
Well, yeah, it said Mike almost
a lot.
And at one point it said hated Michael. So I don't know who it was coming through at that point, but someone didn't like it.
Yeah, and that's a little disconcerting because of the experience that I had in the attic previously. You had that dark orb, and it definitely had some, we'll say a feeling of just negative, like hated you, but again, I don't know, like the feeling that came across with it was just trying to communicate that or communicate something. And that was, just, hey, you got our attention. So
another thing that came through quite a bit was it was asking for help.
Yeah.
So at one point, you said, what do you want? Well, we want to know why you're here. I said, why? And then he came out and said, want out of this place. You can help me. Okay, what do you need us to say it? Patrick knows what to say. However, we never found out what it was we were supposed to say.
And from what I don't know any Patrick. I mean, that's something that we would have to actually look into the history of my house.
Yeah.
But no, there's no immediate family members named Patrick that were ever in the house.
Right.
Now, we did ask how many people there were. It gave us an accurate number. There were 7.
There were 7 people in the house, 6 people in the attic, and then your mom.
And
downstairs.
then my mom. Because shortly, I think between me, whoever asked that, and the response, you heard my mother shout something. I think she was yelling to the dogs or something.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then it said 7. What I found really cool was it felt like there was definitely different spirits coming through, but I think our main one was Poppy, and that's my grandfather who owned the house, Stephen. And obviously you never know who you're speaking with. Mm-hmm. And some of the things that were asked, Qualin asked, what's my nickname? And you said, and this was a short while after, it wasn't immediate, but you're like, Bran.
Yeah.
And then shortly after you said Rem, and then there was a pause, Brant. Now, put that together, that's Rembrandt.
Mm-hmm.
And Poppy nicknamed Q Rembrandt, and that was a nickname that stuck with Q since Poppy was alive. And that was significant. He never called Qualin by his name. He always called him Rembrandt.
Yeah.
Another thing to add to that was just randomly. There were pauses where there was no questions, no answers, because we were all just kind of thinking of what to say next. And you randomly said Cavendish, which is a type of tobacco that Poppy used.
Yeah, it's his favorite tobacco.
Yeah.
It was. You looked it up. It was in Q, which is a type. It was the name of the tobacco that we always pop Poppy for birthdays and Christmas and stuff.
Yeah, and still do.
Yeah. And so it felt like there was times you were speaking to him, or he was speaking, and especially with the house, it felt like they were trying to say, we're here and we can't leave. And what else was said? Like, we want you to go. We won't go.
So the feelings at the times that they were speaking were changing. Like when one would talk, and it was a I don't know, a non-familiar, like somebody I wouldn't recognize, and during the times where others would come in to speak, or another one would come to speak, it seemed strained, like difficult, hard for the communication, which is why it whenever I'm hearing it, and I'm really straining to listen to hear what it is, what's the words. And then I had that sense of warmth at one point, because the attic it's a chilly place, and then I felt this warmth coming in, and I couldn't
behind you was open.
Yeah, and I couldn't tell at what point, that this was happening. It's strange, So as you're saying, these are the things that I'm speaking out. If you asked me at that time, I probably could have said, like, this is the warm feeling I got during these responses, but it's so difficult to pinpoint those afterwards, because it's again, until until you touched my shoulder, Bill, I was out there. I was out in a whole different place. And so then you get that shocking feeling of, wait, whoa, that's the physical world. Like, what was that? And yeah, kind of, it's scary. It gave me a start.
Real quick, Mike.
Yes.
You mentioned something, though. The window was open.
Mm-hmm.
My mother bitches about those attic windows being open, and nobody opens them.
Mm-hmm.
2 of them are open. Right now, 2 of them are open.
And it's winter, or it's still cold. So, it's still winter. It's not spring yet. So it's still technically winter.
Well, tomorrow will be spring.
So, and Mike, you can testify. How many times have we been blamed for opening those attic windows?
All the time. Who opens the windows up there? I'm like, it's winter. Who would open the windows?
All the windows would be open. All the windows, like, for some reason, all the windows are open up in the attic, or not all of them at one time, maybe 1 or 2 or all of them.
Right.
But that's funny you said that, because that is a big issue, is the attic windows always getting open.
And I know you don't like going up in the attic.
No.
So
I'm more inclined to go up to the attic by myself than I am in the basement by myself.
So I've never felt anything up in the attic, except when we were doing this. So, but I was probably the furthest back from everyone, and behind me, I felt like we weren't alone. So I left the attic. I went and got one of our coffin pods and put it back there. At one point while we were up there, it went off. And as soon as it went off, without being prompted, you said, "Be careful." So we asked, "Well, did you touch the pod?" You said, "No, bad, others."
Wow.
Yeah. And
wow.
You said it's that thing there, which we thought at the time that you were talking about the coffin pod, that you're pointing out that thing, that's right. Went off. But the re-listening to it, it almost sounded like you were pointing something else out that was back behind us, because you follow that up with "witch" behind you. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know if it was "witch" WITCH or WHICH.
Right.
But he also said "bitch."
Yeah, we asked, well, can you tell us more about the others, the bad ones? And you said "behind." Well, what are they? Bitch.
So and it's funny, because being disoriented like that, when they say direction, it's almost like they send an image of where, like, of those things, like of what they're trying to point out. So that one I do remember. I remember the part where they were saying there, and the image in my head was by the chimney, just behind the chimney. So
that was to my back. The chimney was to my back.
Oh, see, I don't know where you were standing at these times. It was just the image that came through, and I could still see it, is the flash of the chimney and that standing there, like it was beyond. And it it doesn't show a shape or anything distinct of it, just here, and it's almost like a blacked out area just beyond the chimney.
And it's funny that you talk about the perception. At one point, I believe it was when Qualin and I were asking questions, and we're talking about moving, or it was saying, you're moving, and Qualin took it as us moving out of the home. Right. Whereas I said, and how it sounded to me, it says, because at the same time, Bill is trying to get whatever it is to touch the pods again, the REM pods. And they wouldn't. They were refusing, or I can't, I won't. But then you're also getting you're moving, I'm still, I can't move, or something, something in regards to that. And I took it as maybe on their end, they can't move. Maybe we're moving. Our dimension is moving in a way where they can't touch that pod because it's out of their depth range or out of their ability to touch, because maybe they're standing still on their end and we're moving around.
Yeah.
Something happened in the basement that indicated that how you're seeing it is right. Because on the basement audio, they're on like what they were saying, and I listened to that one. Wow, and
we'll get to that.
Oh yeah,
we're gonna keep that in mind. We're gonna get to that one.
But they were saying that they couldn't. I had been holding the device.
The spirit box, yeah, and they kept saying, set it down, over and over again, set it down.
But that was in the basement.
That was in the basement.
They weren't saying that in the...
No.
So...
But in the attic, I wasn't holding it.
No, we just put it down on a table
or something.
Yeah, it was on the... it was to my right, on the old... I don't know, what is that? A bar, where the thing with the drawers?
Yeah, that's the bar, the old bar. But
yeah,
to wrap up the attic, I mean, at the end, Bill is trying to say, touch this box and we'll leave, because it was, you can see there was a change, a shift in whatever it was speaking, and it was insane.
The last 5 or 10 minutes that you were under for about 55 minutes, which is a long time.
Too much.
Yeah, but the last 5-10 minutes, we kind of got a lot of let it go, give it up, leave, get out. And sometimes it sounded more just like, all right, we're done, just go.
Yeah. And
other times it was more forceful, get out.
It sounded more like, there was times when it sounded more like a warning, like, all right, we're done here. And something that Poppy, I don't see it on the transcript, but I forget, like, you said something that kind of reminded me how he would say when he gets frustrated. And you said it kind of in the tone that he was saying.
You're talking about this here?
It's always something.
So you said, Michael, let me go. And we said, well, he doesn't have you. He can just hear you. And you responded with, well, it's always something.
Yeah. And you knew Poppy. You knew how he felt. And you said it just like he would say it when he's frustrated. He just, doesn't want to deal with it anymore.
Like throwing his arms up.
But then it went back to, there was times when it was very more malicious and more like, F you, I'm not gonna deal with this crap. I'm not touching that. I'm not, things like that. So it's like a back and forth between, is it a warning? Is it saying, look, guys, let it go, get out? Or
And those warnings came through the basement again, but we'll get to that when we get to that.
So after you were done, we went downstairs and we were talking about, and the kids all wanted to try it, which we do encourage because we do want to teach the kids proper techniques and, give them a chance to experience it. But unfortunately, for Izzy and her friend, they were not into it.
Yeah. But when Q was doing it, so Q did it and then you did it, and both of those were far more lighthearted and fun. So Q kept saying things like "yummy," "hungry," "I'm so hungry," or "well, what do you want to eat?" "Meat," "starving." "Well, what can we do to help you?" "Meat."
Yeah.
"What kind of meat?" "Give it to me." "Meat." "Apples."
Eating apples.
Yeah. You know what's funny is the image that came to my mind while he was doing that was roasted ham with the apple in the mouth. Like the old pig roasts.
Yeah.
I took that as something totally different. I took it as something like is being starved. And hungry does not necessarily mean the hunger of a stomach. But if you are a dark force that has now been deprived of its main source, you're now hungry.
Yeah. Yeah.
And before you started saying things like "yummy" and "hungry" and all that, one of the things it said was, "Michael, help me." And so I'm wondering if maybe it was that darker thing was like, oh, hey, Mike's here now. Maybe we can get a fight going again and get fed. So I don't know if that's it. That was just
but if you go back,
going through it.
If we go back to the Timmy situation, which again, first episode, the whole story's there. But the Timmy situation was very similar to that, where Qualin was saying he wants to get these guys to fight. He likes these guys.
Yes.
He wants.
Yep.
Obviously, I'm saying it in little kid verbiage, but
yeah.
This Timmy wants you and Dad to fight, because when you two fight, it makes him happy.
Yes.
Break that lamp, spill that drink, cause problems, because that's going to piss someone off, and they're going to go after each other.
Get the plate flying across the kitchen, and you asked, "What happened?" And the first time I ever heard Q say, and Q, just to preface the what I'm about to say, Q has never lied. I have never, from the time he was born, he is just pure, straightforward, honest, and always has been. So when he said, "I didn't do that, Timmy did that, and he did that to make you mad," that was frightening, because that means that something was there to almost like it wanted to get Q, make Q the focus of a fight, or, and that's, I guess, when we started to realize, okay, so Timmy's not an imaginary friend. Timmy is something more. There's something more to him. And then noticing that things would fall and break when Q wasn't even in the room there, in the kitchen or in the dining room.
Or he would come to us scared because he didn't want to be in the dining room. He didn't want to be by himself. And mind you, he was always okay by himself. He was always okay to do his own thing. And all of a sudden now he's our tail and saying, like, I don't want to go. I just want to hang out with you. I just,
Yep.
Or saying he wants me to go
coming up and curling up.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's something that when Q said that night, that's how I envisioned it. I didn't envision, like, actually, like, I'm hungry. I took it as I'm hungry for.
Yeah, I didn't get that the night that we listened, like, live, but when I went and listened to it back later, I kind of got that same feeling.
But I think that's a good show of how people interpret things. Mm-hmm. Because we were all there. We all heard it in our own way, but I perceived it differently than how you did or Mike did or...
Well, so let me ask you this. How do you interpret when Q went?
Insert that there. Make sure you insert it.
Yeah, I'm gonna insert that audio. But yeah, he ended up calling out Qualin, Mom, Izzy, Tanya, Mike, and he called everyone's name but mine.
Yeah, but if you think about it, you never lived there.
No, wait, you called out my name when you went under.
Did I?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Never mind. I remember now.
So after Q was done, Tanya goes under, and said, "Let's see, you can't help me. Well, who can help you? Amy Arter."
Which I have no idea.
Still have no idea who Amy Arter is.
Mike, do you know any Amy Arter?
No, but I don't think it was I don't think it was Arter, because you said then again when you repeated it, and you repeated it a few times, I think at one point you said harder.
Yeah, she did say at one point harder.
So it's either Arter, A-R-D-E-R, or harder, H-A-R-D-E-R.
Yeah,
either way.
The first time you said it was Amy with it. I listened to it a few times. It's hard to tell whether it's Arter or harder.
Yeah.
I know in the moment we thought it was Arter.
But just like your Patrick, I mean, yeah, my brother had girlfriends that were Amy. That wasn't their last name, but they were not significant to the house or to anybody there.
Well, Amy did get freaked out being in the house.
Yeah, but many people got freaked out.
And she came back to the house remember when my thumb got crushed?
Yeah.
That was me taking the table out of the attic for her. And she was freaked out at that time in the attic saying, I don't like it here. It's just, she wanted to get out of the attic fast. So, yeah, I mean, those are some very... I
take that as her being able to help. I mean, many people have walked into our home and gotten freaked out.
Well, Amy's a fairly common name.
Yeah, Amy's a common
Yes. And who knows if there was...
I could have spoke it incorrectly. Maybe it wasn't Amy. Maybe it was something else.
Yeah, it's hard to say.
But again, we don't know the history of the people of the house either. I mean, there could have been an Amy Arter who at one point lived there. And and something very odd about the house is, and I don't know why, I just kept getting like the almost like origin, like people who are there were there since it was built, like, and those we don't know. It was a Russian contractor. He immigrated from Russia directly to Plymouth and built those houses.
And there could have been other houses on the property prior to. We don't know that either.
We don't know anything until we actually research it.
Right. And so there's a lot that seems to be missing from that. I guess kind of why I would say it's disjointed a bit, like between the different energies, the spirits who are trying to communicate.
Yeah.
So one of the more entertaining things that happened while you were under, you said, "Hey, Bill, welcome back. Do you have a lighter?" Well, yeah, I have a lighter. So I pulled out a lighter. Said, "Light it." So I lit it. Okay, now what? Burn it all down. Yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. Well, the funny thing was that at the end, you're just like, oh, well.
Yeah. And was it playful? Was it being serious?
Well, the funny thing is, like, one of the last things you said was, Qualin, help Bill. Well, what does Bill need help with? Start fire.
Yeah.
And it did tell Key to go back to school.
Yeah. Qualin, yeah? Go check. Go check what? School. I don't go to school. I know. What do you want me to do about it? Go to school. I love you.
And to me, I felt like that's Poppy.
Yeah.
Because Poppy,
that's how it felt. Even Poppy, with the lighter.
Even with burning the house down, him saying, oh, well, at the end, that could be his morbid humor. Mm-hmm. Of just burn it down.
He used to say that. He used to say that, especially when your mom would complain about how we have to get this fixed. We got to go do that. And he's like, just burn it all down. And he would always say that, like here, especially when she was upset. So that's why immediately I was like, wow, that's Poppy. He's here.
I'm looking at it now because I honestly haven't read the transcript up until this moment, but where it says about the pipe.
Oh yeah, so this hit me in two ways. So little backstory. Just a couple days before we did this, I came over to fix your kitchen drain. It was clogged up. I had to take the pipe apart and clean it out. So you said, "Hey Bill, walk. Where do you want me to walk? The drain. Stick your hand in the pipe." Why? You will. I did. Why? Hold on. You found a pipe, Ruthie. So at first I thought, I was talking about me coming over to fix the drain.
Mm-hmm.
But what didn't dawn on me until you said Ruthie. So my parents' names are Bill and Ruth. Mm-hmm. The day after we did this, my parents were planning on replacing one of the pipes in the house, and they just so happened they found a pipe in the house that they didn't have to go buy a new one. So that freaked me out a little bit because regardless of which way that was referring to, that's kind of creepy.
Because my grandmother's name was also Ruth.
Yeah.
So whereas I could have taken that as them telling you, fix the pipe or something in my house, that could have also been a premonition about your parents' house.
Yeah. Yep.
Even the stick your hand in the pipe. So what happened was while my parents were doing the pipe, because I called them the next morning to warn them, and it turned out they had already done it. They got up early and did it. But my dad had stuck his hand in the pipe at one point. They were replacing a piece of cast iron pipe. He cut his hand when he put his hand in the pipe. And then later that day, the toilet was clogged, and they actually had to pull the PVC pipe away from the cast iron, and my dad had to stick his hand in and clean out a bunch of the rust that fell when they were replacing that first pipe.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And then what's this about book?
Oh, so you said never open the book. Well, which book? The book? And you just said the book. I think Qualin asked, "What do you mean, the Bible?"
Which we don't have one.
And then he asked, "Are you referring to my Dungeon Master books?" Just being a wise ass. That coupled with all the I'm hungry, I asked, well, could it be referring to all the cookbooks we just bought Qualin for Christmas?
It's telling us not to let Qualin cook. There you
go.
He's going to help us put the house down. Hey, Qualin almost did start a fire, so.
Yeah.
But I know it's funny because when I was under, I wasn't really feeling it that night, and
well, it seemed less like you were listening and more like you were channeling, which was a little because just like the way you were sitting and the way you presented everything was less like when Mike was doing it, you can kind of tell he was hearing and then speaking.
Yeah.
Whereas it almost seemed like it was just coming straight out.
Yeah, well, I did because it wasn't the right headphones and I didn't feel comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly went in there freaking out. Like in my head, I'm thinking, how about if I hear anyone say a question? Because then that totally ruins it. Because then I'm taking their question and then I'm
right.
And I was already going in there with that mindset, so my mind was only on what happens if I hear. What happens if I hear? And there was a few times where I did hear things. Especially when Qualin spoke, because he's loud. But I wasn't really like in that calm mindset. I felt like I wasn't really getting anything. I did laugh, I think, with Qualin, when I said Qualin burn it down or help him. Or start the fire or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, that was pretty much the last thing
but
that happened.
People were laughing, so I just kind of like laugh, that contagious laughter.
But the way you laughed, and if you listen on the audio to that, your laugh sounded so familiar, but not yours. And that's what I felt was so, it was that was the out of otherworldly experience, because your mannerisms changed. Your, like, everything, every response you were giving was, as if it was coming directly from Steve. It was, and even the laugh at the end seemed like his. Like, I got them to laugh, and he loved doing that. That was something he also enjoyed, and because he was a man of few words, most of the time, and when he would laugh, it was so. I mean, I would definitely listen to that, and you'll see there's such a difference in the way you laughed or when you were talking. So I thought that was just like, wow, that's definitely him coming through, and almost like he seemed to enjoy having that his voice come through you.
All right. So after we got all done on Friday, that was pretty much all we were planning, but Mike wanted more, and we were not ones to turn down any kind of ghost hunting. So the next evening, Tanya had work, so it was just me, Mike, and Qualin, and Izzy. And Mike, you had this great idea of getting Tanya's mother involved and have her go under.
Yeah, I thought, because she is so tied into the house that it would be nice to kind of like a start to get things going, oiling the cogs, so to speak, and she's always been very spiritualistic, and I thought, hey, why not, get her in to see what she picks up on, see what she, if she could hear anything through that, because I was very curious as well. So
yeah, so she was only under for about maybe 15-20 minutes, and I was re-listening to the audio last night, and the first 10 minutes or so, not a whole lot came through. What did come through didn't really make a whole lot of sense, but it was the last 10 minutes or so that kind of had some stuff going on. One thing that came up was to go upstairs and the number 4, which we also got when Tanya was under the night before. Those words came up as well. So 4 seems to be kind of this something that it was trying to get across, but we haven't figured out why yet.
It something interesting when Tanya was saying it almost sounded like she was giving instructions.
Yeah, it was go upstairs, pivot, count the 4, something like that.
Pivot, and I didn't know if it meant go upstairs and then pivot 4 times, or go upstairs, pivot, and then 4 of something else, or 4. Then when Linda went under and said it, go up. And I was, Q asked, in the attic? I was like, well, I think it's just a direction, go up, and I was,
right.
And then she said, up in the attic. She said to attic. And then 4. And I was like, wow, that was very strange instructions, considering Tanya said it in the complete absence of Linda. Linda wasn't around even to hear any of that. Mm-hmm. Neither did we tell her. Nobody told her about that. So it was very interesting. She would come up with the exact same thing.
Yeah. Now I've reached out to the pagan and Wicca communities that I'm involved in to see if they know anything, any kind of correlation with the number 4 that might make sense in this situation. I haven't gotten anything back that's really been helpful yet, but I'll keep you updated if I do.
Yeah, please do. That would be awesome to hear, especially if there's any connection to that. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah. The only other thing that came up while Linda was under was brick and dig. And so I'm wondering if maybe there's either some bricks buried somewhere or something written on a brick, or I'm heading down Tanya's house when we're done recording this podcast, and my intention is, first thing I do when I get there is because there are bricks around the house. I'm gonna take a look at them and see if there's anything maybe written on one of them or something. It's a long shot, but doesn't hurt to check.
So I don't know if this is true or not, but uh I don't know. Do you think like so we kept getting what was it, Mary, right?
Yeah.
Uh and we found out that that was probably my grandmother's grandmother. Uh and uh and so I assume because they're all old or whatever, that we probably were getting some like biblical stuff, right? Um so like the number four could mean like creation, right? Because it's like a big thing in the Bible. Uh
Yeah, four in terms of angel numbers, four is creation.
yeah, so like they could be like, but at the same time it could mean something completely something else. But like it just seemed like they wanted us to do some like kind of weird ritual. That's how it seemed to me, at least.
I don't think this is at all related, but it just dawned on me. This is the fourth podcast that we're recording.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's pretty cool.
That might just be a coincidence, but that just dawned on me that's it. Oh, and we forgot to introduce him, but that new voice you hear is Qualin Gilroy, Tanya.
Hello.
So he's joining us for the second part of the podcast. So yeah, that was pretty much it with Linda in the dining room. And it was at that point that Mike, you wanted to go under again, and we were going to go to the basement this time.
Yes. Yeah, I just only because if like with my history there, the basement has always been I've had my most physical or vibrant experience there, and you can always sense something there. I mean, it's always, and yeah, I mean, basements are historically more creepy places, but I don't know. I would always get that very difficult to explain. That wall, like as soon as you touch ground in the basement, you can sense it, you can feel it, and
yeah, I know that feeling quite well in that basement.
Yeah, and you having the minimal experience going in there, and that you can sense that right off the bat it's like, I don't know, almost confirming, and then a little bit scary too, because it's hard to have that realized.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so for the basement, I think we're going to go a little bit more through the transcript than we have in the other areas, just because a lot had gone on while we were down there. And some of it didn't really seem like much at the time, but knowing what's coming, there's a lot more warnings and whatnot in there. So to begin with, Q asked about, does the number four have any significance? And immediately you said, to me. Well, to who? Mary. You said it twice. And so we asked, well, are you referring to Mary Henry? And you immediately said, don't bother me. So there might be some connection to the number four with Mary. And Mary Henry was correct me if I'm wrong, but that was Q. That's your grandmother's grandmother.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and she, Linda had confirmed that she also died in the house.
Oh, she did.
She did.
Okay. All right. So yeah, that might be the Mary that's coming through, and there might be a number four associated with her somehow. We don't know yet.
I like how every time we mention the number four, that night, it seemed like they were avoiding it. And it could have just been like, random radio. But like it really did seem like they were like just avoiding that question. And like they wouldn't answer that in specific.
It's because down in the basement, most of what we asked you got answers to, except when you asked about number 4, and that's when they kind of either change the subject or something nonsensical came through. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're dodging the question.
Yes, because every other question we had was pretty coherent.
Yeah.
So
one thing that was interesting down there is, we put the K2 on one of the coolers, and it yelled at us to go, which should have been warning number 1. And then it said, set it down, set it down. So Q had a flashlight in his hand, so he put it down. And it said, set it, Mike. Can't hurt, set it down. Listening. And so we, at that point, we weren't holding anything. Mike, you still had the spirit box in your hand, but we didn't tell you to put that down. So we said, look, Mike's holding the spirit box. We can't tell him to put it down because he can't hear us. And so we moved on to other topics, and then it said again, set it down. And so all of a sudden, we noticed Mike's kind of moving around looking for something, and turns out he was looking for a place to put down the spirit box. So clearly you got the message.
Well, the first time that was coming through, I was just saying the words. So I was listening for the words, saying them just to repeat them so that they, you guys could hear what was being said or what any of the responses were. And it was, then it came again. And it was like more forceful at that point. Set it down. And then the voice that said Mike was like, almost like, Mike, set it down. Like, I'm talking to you. And that's when I realized, oh my God, like it wants me to set this down. Because, it was something about it, me holding it wasn't okay. Like they couldn't talk through it then. And that was the feelings that I was getting at the time. So I started to look, is there any space around me? Like I started to just feel, is there something? There's got to be something I can set it on, and then I found something off to the side. It felt like a piece of wood and on top of something. So I checked to see if it was okay. And then as soon as I set it down, then there was more words, just almost like a steady flow after that.
Yeah, as soon as you put it down, the first thing that came out of your mouth were, I am here, ready to talk.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So Q took the opportunity and he's like, all right, well, if you're ready to talk, what does number 4 mean?
And then we got some random radio.
Well, it wasn't, looking back at it, it's not as random because it was, are you asking me where I'm at?
Oh,
no,
yeah.
I'd like to know, we are here. And then it went on to say, here at home. Well, what do you want us to help you with? Right here, right here. Well, right where? Tell me where. In front of you. Well, what's in front of us? Mary and others. It's like talking through mud water.
Yeah, because I honestly thought it was like, because I don't know, I had this like feeling for a while that like when we do the Estes method, their answers are delayed.
Sometimes, yeah.
And so I always feel like they're like it is like talking through water, like it's like muffled, like what they're hearing compared to what we're hearing. And also at the same time, when we were down there, when we first got down there, we were starting up everything and starting like the early questions. I remember I did feel like there was more people there. Like it felt like more there. Like I felt like there was eyes on us. If you remember somebody saying that.
Back towards the back, you said that you were
yeah. And then when we asked, they were like, there are, there is, or something like that. There was a lot of us.
So it said, how come you're with us? We said, we want to talk. Okay. Help me talk with you. Well, we're trying to. And then we got a laugh come through. It wasn't like an evil laugh. It was just a ha ha ha.
Yeah.
So why are you laughing? Did you feel that? No. What are we supposed to feel? I'm on you.
As soon as that actually came through, I don't know if I said it, but I did feel like a heaviness on my shoulders. I know it was probably just like a placebo, but like it did like the room felt heavier. Um, I think Dad had the chills at that point too, like he was moving around. But my shoulders did feel a bit heavy after that.
Yeah. Well, when it said that, it said, "Hey, pumpkin, look at me." Well, where are you? I'm right here, right in front of you. Look through your eye. I'm here. So saying "look through your eye," knowing that like the lights are off, we can't see.
Hmm.
I grabbed my phone and I started taking some pictures. Um, I didn't see anything on the pictures.
Yeah, I didn't know what it meant. Like it normally like I didn't know why it didn't plural eyes. So I was like, oh, what eye? Which eye do you want me to look at you through? But I don't think we got a response from that.
No, no, we didn't.
Um,
No, the next thing was Qualin. Why are you down here? You said I want to talk to you. Well, who's with you? And I'm wondering if maybe they were referring to me at that point, because if it was, because some of the stuff coming through around then kind of seemed like it might have been, uh, family, and
yeah,
so I didn't know who I was.
yeah,
That's just kind of the feeling I got with it. And then it said, "We are coming and going. It's harder listening and staying. You will keep progressing." So, so that kind of ties in with what went on in the attic the night before, uh,
yeah.
where it was saying like it's we're moving or you're moving, we're staying still, that kind of thing.
Which is weird because it's like something's like forcing them to move, or maybe like they physically can't stay in one place.
Yeah,
At least that's how I took it. But like, uh, what really got me was the you'll keep progressing part. Like, do they mean progressing with like our investigation, or is it like just be progressing in life normally? Because we did progress a lot from the past 2 nights.
oh yeah,
Um, that was a huge progression. Like it started off with us in the attic, and then we got something in the living room, and now we got something in the basement, which was huge at that time.
yeah. So then it says, Qualin, I know Bill well. So I asked, well, how do you know me? Please, you let me go. Leave alone. It's not worth it. I know. Well, what's not worth it? You know. Why would you want it? See, now that whole section right there, at the time, I had no idea what the hell was going on there, what they were trying to get at. But
Yeah,
knowing what's coming, I think that was a major warning for us to stop. That
yeah, to like
something's
get out.
coming. You don't want this. Just be done with it.
It
At
definitely could have been.
at that point, there was this cold, almost like an ice cold wall started to push in. More than just a temperature drop. It was like a pressing ice cold feeling at that point for me.
Well, yeah,
And there was some distance, like almost like an urgency that was coming through with whatever that they were saying at that point.
yeah. The only other thing we got between that and the next big part was Tanya went here when little, which is true. Tanya used to
Yeah,
go over to that side and see her grandfather all the time down in the basement. But right after that, Mike, your whole voice changed. Like if you could go onto our YouTube channel and listen to this, and you could hear his voice change. And what you get is, "I'm here now," and then a very evil laugh.
yeah. That's when the mood changed heavily.
Yeah,
Uh, I remember I turned on the light immediately. Because I was like, nope, not dealing with that in the dark. And the EMF reader started kind of a little bit going off at that point. Like it was blinking, but it wasn't being steady.
right. So,
Um,
so up to this point, the K2 was to not go off at all. As
Yeah.
soon as Mike said, "I'm here now," it started to blink. And as we continued going through the rest of the time we were in the basement, the blinking got faster and faster and faster until it just became a steady light and stayed on right up until the end.
Yeah. It was only like the first light, right? Like the second light, whatever.
Yeah.
So it wasn't red. But it was still steady. Which it wasn't doing that all night, even on the bucket. So like it wasn't near anything that could have been causing like it to go off.
No, and we were down there for 15 minutes with it sitting in the same spot without it going off.
Yeah. Even with the flashlight next to it, it wasn't going off or anything. So like it was fine.
So the next thing was Mike, your voice went back to normal, and you said, "Watch out, dark, quiet, go." So I think that was the last warning we got that this is bad. You need to end this now. But we didn't.
Yeah, and we turned off the light. And we did sit in the quiet for like 2 seconds.
And then it said, "This is mine. What's yours? Baby, you are little." And
I called it a baby.
you said, "Well, you seem like a baby right now. You won't even touch the light." And so, Mike, you yelled, "Fuck."
Yeah.
So I said, "Hey, watch your language." As soon as I said that, Bama, Linda's pit bull, who was right above us, starts scratching at the floor, whining, and she barked twice. Now, after all this, we asked about it. Izzy and Linda, who were right above us with the dog, said the dog never barked. But it's on the audio. You could hear her bark twice.
Yeah, that also freaked me out. I mean, we had tons of dogs in those like years that we had the house. A lot of them died of like old age or like natural causes. But so that could be something. But and like ghost animals are kind of a common place, I guess, in the house where mom and dad have seen cats and other animals before. But
yeah,
like
we talked about that a little bit earlier on in the podcast.
yeah, so like that could have been a thing, but like it was just so loud and like clear that it was just like it was weird. It was really weird. And like I think after the dog bark wasn't it when like it just got heavier.
Yeah,
Like that's how I can explain it as. It's just heavier. Like the air was thick.
Right after the dog barked, in Mike's normal voice, it was, "Don't talk to him. You're in trouble." Well, who's in trouble? And then Mike, your voice changed again, and you're like, "Trouble."
Well, I should say at this point, from the time that it said, "I am here," so from that moment, the other voices that had been coming through, they came through over the radio. Like they came through over the radio frequency, and you could see that they were pushing. You can hear it, that they're pushing the words through the signal. That "I am here" came all of its own over the speaker. And then whenever that entity spoke, it used its own voice over the speakers. So it wasn't like the other ones. Even when after it said "I am here," and the other one said, something like "leave, go," that was through the radio. That was through the radio frequency. And then, mine, that was its own voice over the speakers. And so that was, and it was dark and harsh. It was just completely different than the other ones.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier that it was, when you were under, it was kind of like a sea of gray. But you mentioned after we left the basement that during that time it was black.
Yeah, it was total blacked out. There was a ice cold, hard pressure on my chest and my back. it was pressing forward, like pressing inward, and it got harder to breathe. It was, the images, the feelings were all, hurt, pain, wanted harm. And it just kept growing more and more intense, just heavy. The pressure was heavier, the cold was colder, the feelings, like inside my actual physical body were actually being pressed. And it was intense. It was nothing I'd ever felt before. Not like that.
No, and when you go back and you listen to it, that comes through. I mean, I was listening to it last night in preparation for this podcast, and Mike, I texted you last night. Like, I just listened to it. My heart is racing. Like, I felt the anxiety and the fear just from listening to it. And even now talking about it, I'm starting to get chills.
Yeah. I could feel like the ice just that run right down my spine. It's like, it was such an unbelievable, intensive experience. And then to hear that voice, like it was, I don't know. I didn't expect that that something could come over with its own voice, and it was powerful. It was, just a malevolent spirit,
Yeah. Well, so there was only a couple more things that came through before we ended the session in the basement, and none of them were good, and they all seemed to be directed at me. First was you make Bill, and there was a pause, and then alive, and then so at this point it was total darkness in the basement, and I saw this little it was kind of like a bluish white glowing speck right above, about 6-7 inches above the K2 meter. It almost looked like if like a piece, like light hitting a piece of dust floating through, in front of a window or something.
Right.
But there was only one, and it was about 6-7 inches above it, and the K2 was going off during this. So I immediately said, I grabbed Q's shoulder and I said, "Hey, did you see that?" He goes, "What?" So I'm trying to tell him what I saw, and you said, "That was me." And we're like, "Oh, okay." And then the last thing you said was, "Watch your neck, Bill." And then you threw the headphones off and you're like, "Yeah, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I'm done."
Yeah. At that point, so, it's funny you say that you see that blue light, and it was, I Make You Alive. Like it wanted to excite you, animate you, like, oh, watch this, I'll make you, like, I'll let you see, here you go, almost like that. Like, when you said you asked Q, and you got more excited because now you just saw something. And that's kind of, to me, that's how I'm interpreting it, is like, well, take a look at this, and then it said, and right when it said about the neck, there was like that dark, that heavy pressing feeling. It intensified, and it just continually intensified more and more and more. Like it was becoming extremely overwhelming, to almost felt like I was drowning in it. And it was so cold and hard and just vicious. And I couldn't hold, I couldn't be in there anymore. It almost felt like it wanted to take over, and it was pushing inward towards me and aimed right at you. And again, I had complete blackout of vision, and I couldn't hear anything around me other than what was coming through. And so it as odd as it might sound, it looked directly to where you were. And I knew exactly where you were standing right at that point. Like it was aiming right at you.
So I want to note at this point that at this time, the basement lights were off, our flashlight was off, and Mike, you had a blindfold on.
Yep.
So there's no way and I was moving around during part of this. And so there's no way you could have known where I was.
Yeah.
It was it knew, like it knew exactly right where you were. It aimed right at you. And then I could see the image of you as it's aiming towards you. And I was like, wow, this is too intense. This is too harsh. It was just extremely overwhelming. And it was, I don't know. I had that the feeling of being just in just pitch black water, ice, just drowning and freezing. And that was it for me. I couldn't. I mean, it was. I don't know. I felt vulnerable, very, very vulnerable. Very.
It's kind of funny because I had like a completely different feeling at that time. Like you guys were feeling a little like scared and that you were feeling vulnerable and stuff. And I was feeling like very excited. I don't know why, but at that moment I was really excited to like continue to keep poking and prodding at this thing.
So for me, it initially, as soon as you said, I'm here now, I knew what it was because I've experienced, I've encountered it before. My initial reaction was excitement because holy crap, something's going to happen. And it was the paranormal investigator in me that was coming out and be like, all right, yeah, this is awesome, something's going to happen. But as it progressed and like just the feeling just changed, that excitement to fear because, for one, it kind of dawned on me just how bad this thing was, and two, when I realized it was kind of aiming at me, but even like right now talking about it, I got the chill going down my spine.
Yeah. Just remembering it, just hearing that voice again, just thinking about that, I can feel it again, like distant now, but like it was just too real, too vicious, too harsh.
Yeah, I got you on that. But yeah, I mean, you threw those headphones off and you're just like, I'm done. You said it's a dark thing. It's really dark.
Yes.
I'm done. And you went upstairs. And so we came up after you. You were visibly shaken and upset. Like
Yeah.
your eyes were red. You looked like you were terrified.
It was that drowning feeling that, I say drowning, but that doesn't do it justice. The feelings that it was almost like it wanted its force known. Like, this is what you're playing with. This is what you're poking at. And I had to get away from it. It was just, that, and again, that was my first time ever making contact in that way with something that powerful. So, like in such a harsh, pure evil is the best word to describe it.
Yeah, it's so weird that I had like a completely different feeling when it came to it. Like at first I was kind of a little freaked out, like when the tone changed and when it was really heavy, but as soon as it was talking like more and more, I was like, I really want to piss this thing off. Like, I don't know why, but I really wanted to just mess with it and like make it mad.
Yeah, my intention was not to make it mad, but I didn't want to do what it asked.
I don't want to do it with asked
any
either.
level of a win.
Um,
But when Mike said I'm done, I can't do it anymore. Like, all right, then we're done. Like, I wasn't gonna force you to go into it. I wasn't gonna ask you to do anymore because, especially
yeah.
how shaken you looked.
Yeah, I never expected to be physically, the physical, like the actual physical contact. It felt like I could feel it, the actual contact, and that came with this massive, just almost I would think a tidal wave would best describe it, of just ice cold, dark intention. And I was having a hard time breathing at that point. You know, it was pressing down in on me, and I had to break away. And it's funny because as soon as I took the headphones off, they immediately took the headphones off and lifted the blindfold off and opened my eyes. It was, you know, I could feel it ebbing away. Like, okay, you know, but it was still there, you know, like there was still pressure. There was still, you know, but it was just so much less intense. And then getting farther away, like the only instinct I had was distance, you know, and
Yeah.
I couldn't have gotten out of there fast enough. It was.
Yeah, I will say that the room, like it was cold when we first went down there, but after all that, it was like frigid. Like maybe it was like just like the atmosphere of the room, like how it was feeling heavy, and it just felt colder than it normally did, but it was freezing. Like it felt like my hands were going numb in that coldness.
So this might be an incredibly stupid thing to do, but ever since then, I've kind of had this. I don't want to say a desire because that's not the right word, but like this draw to go under myself in the basement on Tanya's side of the house, but to go under the Estes Method, and we're thinking about doing it this evening before Tanya goes.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's a really stupid thing to do, or maybe we'll get some answers or what, but it feels like that's something I should do.
Well, it probably is gonna be a little bit scary because I think our basement is way more like creepy, just in the tone than my grandmother's basement. Like you've definitely you've been down there before where it's like all this like just like stone and like dirt and like broken glass, and it looks like somebody like it looks like a butcher shop, like somebody was down there murdering people.
Yeah, it does have that
like,
look sometimes.
Yeah, we have like all these like hanging like old like bikes and like all these like random tools strewn about and like rusted nails and stuff. It just seems very horror-esque.
Yeah, one thing we're going to do differently this time around is we're going to take my full spectrum camera and record the whole thing on video. So, Mike, one of my biggest regrets about that whole thing was that I didn't have my full spectrum camera with me. I would have loved to have recorded that, and you know, maybe we could have seen something around you.
Yeah, that would have been cool.
That would have been that. I think having that available would be awesome. That would be, you know, just to see it, just to know, you know, is there a form to it? But it would also be equally frightening to the feelings that it gave. I'm not so sure I'd want to see the face of that thing, you know?
Oh no, I totally understand. Like the normal side of me is like, yeah, no, I don't want to see it. But the paranormal investigator side of me is bring it on.
Right. You want to see that deep curiosity of, okay, well, what are you? So
who knows? Maybe if you saw it right with like the camera, maybe it would have been all bark, no bite. Like it would have been like this tiny little dude. You never know.
Yeah, I definitely want to see the results of that. I want to see what comes of that. And just, you know, of course, you know, I'd say be careful, Bill, but I think your curiosity is, you know, won't be abated until you go down and find out, you know?
True. Yeah, if anything really like big does happen, we'll end up recording at least Tanya and I and Q if you want to. We'll end up recording an additional little segment to throw on the end of this podcast.
Okay.
So if you're listening to this podcast and you don't get that segment, it's because either we didn't do it or nothing really happened.
Yeah, I don't see that as being a likelihood, though. You know,
yeah,
it's, you know, once you've experienced it, you know, one like hearing that come over on its own, you know, I got that sense that it's its own thing. And it felt like it blocks the other ones, like it gets in their way, it doesn't allow them, the ability to talk, or it doesn't allow them to move around. Like they avoid it or it blocks them, and that that dark laugh that comes with it. It's harsh, and it just seems controlling and evil.
Yeah. And if you, the listeners, want a real taste of this, go up on our YouTube page. The raw audio's there. It's untouched. It's an hour and a half because it's everything that we did in the dining room with Linda, us conversing a little bit before going down to the basement, and going down in the basement, and our conversation afterwards. I recorded the whole thing. But yeah, it's intense.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, that's definitely a word that describes it perfectly. It was definitely intense. It was an unforgettable experience.
And it was not what we expected when we started doing this. But like we said, we were originally going to do the Suscon Road Screamer, and that turned into a paranormal investigation just to try to give you some experience with the Estes Method and see if it could happen while you were in the house. And you wanted to do another day of it, and then hit the fan.
Careful what you wish for. But I'm definitely, I want to come back when I come back up in July. I want to try again, and this time I'll have I'll have something on me or with me that is protective, because that but hopefully it'll still work. But I don't know, that feeling of vulnerability was extremely overwhelming, and very intense. I have to say, if there are any skeptics that like I kind of went in it with a little skepticism, like, and then having things come over in the attic still allows for some skepticism, like, maybe it is the radio signal, maybe I'm just trying to pick up words within the little blurbs of words, and even though they were coherent, there's still some radio signal in there, so it's comforting. And then when we went into the basement, to hear a voice come over all of its own accord, it spoke directly. It was, didn't use, the radio signals. It literally just spoke directly. That was the part where it's, so much more intense. So it's more too real, almost. So I am a skeptic no more. Not even a little bit.
Yeah, we're definitely looking forward to you coming back up and doing some more investigating, both at Tanya's house and some stuff with Suscon Road and anything else while you're up here.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that. Mostly.
Well, I just want to thank both of you for being on the podcast and taking time out of your day to talk with us, and hopefully with more investigations in the future, we'll have you on again. And I know, Mike, you're working on getting your own group together down there.
Yes.
So we'll hopefully talk some more on the podcast about it. Obviously, we'll talk more off the podcast about it, but
yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Definitely.
Well, thanks for having me on, and thanks for letting me be a part of that process. That was definitely a very new, and if nothing else, very exciting experience for me.
Yeah, and it's a new piece of methodology you could use on your own investigations moving forward.
Absolutely. All
right. Well, thank you both again. We very much appreciate it.
Thank you, Bill.
So you might be wondering why, in a podcast about ghost hunting, we started the podcast with a quote from J. Allen Hynek, who was one of the scientists involved with Project Blue Book, which was a government-funded research project into UFO phenomenon in the 50s and 60s. Well, this is why. During the first night of our investigation at Tanya's house, the investigation didn't end. Well, I should say, the night didn't end when the investigation did.
The excitement didn't end.
So we were going to spend the night at my house. So we're driving from Tanya's house to mine. and we were just discussing everything that happened that night, the whole ride up. Well, until we got to one point. As we were driving, at one point, out of the corner of my eye, I saw a green light. So I looked up, and what I saw was a green glowing sphere with a short little tail behind it, heading in the same direction we were, which was north. It was to our right, which was to the east of us, and it was heading north just way faster than we were. And it kind of went up and over the tree line on the mountain there. I was kind of speechless. I just looked over at Tanya and said, "Did you see that?"
And I'm like, "Yes, I did." Now I saw it the same way, and it was very low. It looked like it was going into the trees. That's how low it was. So I wasn't gonna say anything because I just assumed I was seeing things. Until Bill asked for verification too. And then immediately, our first thought was it a plane?
So we looked up, what side. So planes have a red and green light.
Mm-hmm.
Red's on one side, green's on the other. Okay, could this have been a plane? If it's heading the same direction we are, and it's to our right, we're looking at the left-hand side of the plane. When we looked it up, the left-hand side of the plane has the red light.
Yeah, and that was definitely not facing us because it was facing our right. So
yeah,
we saw all green. And it's just like how Bill explained. It was like a green sphere, and then the aura around it was a little bit lighter, but that was green. I mean, it was an obvious green color.
Yeah, we're talking like traffic light green.
Yeah, and I've never seen anything like that ever. And then our next theory was
ball lightning.
Yeah, ball lightning or a meteor.
Right. So ball lightning is rarely, if ever, a perfect sphere, and when it is, it's very short-lived. Like fraction of a second, and then it's because it changes shape as it travels. Ball lightning also doesn't, and the research I did does not come in green, and what we saw was very, very green.
Yeah, so, of course, there was also reports of meteors that very night. Green meteors.
Yeah, so we posted online that we saw this, and someone mentioned, "Oh yeah, there was a green meteor sighted that night." So I went on to the American Meteor Society, amsmeteors.org, and sure enough, at 12:38 a.m., which was the time that we saw this, on March 13th, there were 33 sightings of a green fireball meteor. You can look these up. It's event number 1559-2021. However, the problem is, at the time that we saw it, all these reports had it witnessed in upstate New York, which is not to our east. That would have been straight ahead in the direction we were traveling.
Because you work in New York, so you know the road.
And it had a southwest trajectory, meaning it was traveling towards the southwest. Mm-hmm. What we saw was traveling in the same direction we were, which was north.
It was northeast, right?
Yeah, it was like a northeast.
Mm-hmm.
So that in and of itself, just that's not it. Also, what was reported had a very long tail, many times the size of the diameter of the meteor itself. What we saw had a short tail. That was maybe the size of the meteor or the fireball that we saw, and that's it.
It was very short.
Yeah.
So and we are not ones to jump to conclusions. No. So we really have tried to rule out all the possibilities. I've never seen not even a shooting star ever.
I've seen plenty of shooting stars, and they don't look like that.
I've seen satellites, but that's probably my extent of seeing things in the sky. And mind you, I really like UFOs. I love that stuff. And I do believe in aliens and stuff like that. But even I was skeptical because our purpose is to rule out the obvious, rule out all possibilities before jumping to those conclusions.
So to that point, at this point, what we saw meets every criteria for a UFO, which is unidentified flying object, or the newer term UAP, unexplained aerial phenomenon. Now, not saying aliens, not saying that at all. Could it be? Sure, but at this point, no idea what it is.
Yeah, all we saw was something similar to what other people reported, which was a meteor.
Yeah.
But ours was in the totally wrong direction.
In the wrong location.
Wrong location, wrong direction. So we've had some conclusions. I mean, mind you, that was immensely exciting.
Super exciting.
Because, like I said, I've never seen anything.
We were talking about everything that happened that night, which was already an exciting night.
Mm-hmm. There was already a lot of energy in the air.
And then we saw that, and so that's all we talked about for the next 2 hours. Yeah, we got back to my house and did not go to sleep like we planned. No. Because we were wired now. And
we were searching up, and then you went on to the website to report it.
Yep, so we went on to MUFON's website, the Mutual UFO Network. That's MUFON.com. You could also find it on UFOstalker.com. It's report number 114135. So we did report it. I never got a call or anything about it. I don't know if you did.
No.
But
some cool theories that we had was if it were some type of extraterrestrial, that what better time to make a presence known than during the time of a meteor sighting.
Right.
Because you're just going to be mistaken as a meteor.
Mm-hmm. Or it could be that what we saw was possibly an alien spaceship and that the meteor was a crashing alien spaceship.
Yeah. Or that they were coming because of the meteor.
Mm-hmm. Or it's something else mundane that we don't really have an explanation for. We spent, a couple hours that night looking at all the possible explanations what it could be before we made a report. Mm-hmm. And since then, we've continued to look at what it could be, and I got nothing.
No. But it was just awesome that something like that, even if it was environmental, mm-hmm. something like that happened on a night where we were already kind of wired up from experiencing things in my house.
And just to add the trifecta there, where we saw it, in a guy's yard, he has a big Bigfoot cut out. It's obviously not an actual Bigfoot, but the fact that we saw it right there just makes it the trifecta for the evening.
Now, if we saw a real Bigfoot, that would be the cherry on top of the sundae.
Yeah.
Which I have a feeling we are, because I've been seeing a lot of Bigfoot things lately.
There's it's like out of nowhere, there's suddenly Bigfoot everywhere.
Everything. Yeah.
Like in the last week, places that we drive all the time now have multiple signs for Bigfoot, and people have Bigfoot painted on their cars, and
just odd places.
Yeah.
Bigfoot statues and just the most weird places, or, just things that normally would not have those. But I have seen so many Bigfoot, not memorabilia, but
just as
Bigfoot
image everywhere.
Objects, yeah. So unless it's becoming popular now. So who knows? Maybe we'll get lucky soon and see a Bigfoot. Tis the season. It is becoming spring.
Yeah. Well, and we had no intention on doing any alien stuff until this summer when the weather got warmer, and we were going to do the CE5 and all that. But to have a random sighting, and it almost didn't happen because we did the attic. Mm-hmm. We came downstairs, and the kids wanted to do it, and I didn't want to. I wanted to go home. I was tired.
We have an early bedtime.
Yeah. But so all right, fine. We'll have the kids do it, and then Q wanted to do it. Oh, all right. And then everyone insisted that Tanya do it. Like, I want to go to sleep. So happy that we stayed and did it because we were in the right place at the right time.
It's not normal that we're, out that late on just a normal night.
No, I can't remember the last time I was up at 12:38 in the evening.
Old man.
I know.
So, it could have been something unexplained. I really hope it would be, deep down inside, because I love that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
it could also be something totally environmental that we just don't have the answer to. But either way, it was totally awesome to witness. The excitement alone was worth it, and for it to just be the perfect ending to an evening that was already, exciting and filled with electricity, and it just felt like it was meant to be.
Yeah, so we went from, having a failed attempt at an investigation to having a investigation at your house, which brought some phenomenal results,
Mm-hmm.
to a genuine UFO, not aliens, UFO, unidentified flying object.
Mm-hmm.
And the following day, I had one of, if not the scariest paranormal encounter that me, Mike, and Q have ever had.
I wasn't there. I had a
Yeah, well, sucks for you.
And I think a trend that we're seeing is that we try to go onto a certain path and we literally get shifted somewhere else.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems to be kind of a consistent pattern, and that's something that we should start looking out for, especially in future investigations. We have a goal, but we don't, even though we kind of try to reach that goal, we kind of end up getting
sidetracked.
Not sidetracked, but just put on a different path that leads to different but better results.
Yeah, Mike was actually telling me that he thinks, based on what he's seen between us and things and the stories we've told and things happening around us, that it almost seems like there's something else orchestrating us to walk down this path for a reason. There's some end goal that we're supposed to get to, and I gotta say, I think he's right.
Well, we've said it since the beginning.
There's so many synchronicities and weird shit that just keeps happening between us that just is pushing us down this path.
And I think we've seen it in other people who've recorded their investigations. Like, you always find that one thing that kind of puts you down a rabbit hole.
Mm-hmm.
And it totally leads you off the beaten path and you're going a different direction. But you're gathering all this information. It's like finding the pieces of a puzzle, but you can't put the puzzle together yet.
Keyword there is yet.
Yeah. So going forward, that's something we need to keep in mind, is that I don't think that, or no, should I say that any investigation that leads us off the trail is part of this puzzle.
Yeah.
Because we might have some that are just straightforward. We go there with an intention, and it just, that's how it is. But the ones that kind of take us elsewhere have some meaning, have something else.
Right, and we haven't talked about this in the podcast yet, but in that vein, with Theater at North, with everything that happened there, and the Shadow Man, the Hat Man.
Mm-hmm.
I was telling this to my grandmother just a week ago, and she goes, "Oh yeah, I've seen a man in my house." Now, mind you, she lives by herself, and twice in the last year, and these were two instances that were 9 months apart, she'd be sitting there watching TV, and she'd see she said it was a dark man wearing a trench coat. She couldn't see his face. She did not recall whether or not he had a hat or not. But he would walk to the living room door, and the first time he asked her, "What are you doing?" and she said she just felt calm, like it was normal, and said, "Watching TV." He said, "Oh, okay," and then just disappeared. The second time she saw him, she asked him, "What do you want?" He said, "Nothing," and then disappeared. And I asked her if she was afraid or felt anything weird, the fact that she saw somebody in the house. She goes, "No, it felt absolutely like they just felt normal." So that's a case of paranormal apathy,
Mm-hmm.
where you see something out of the ordinary, whether it be alien or a ghost or something, and it doesn't
Affect you.
It doesn't scare you. Like, there's like this calmingness over you that just kind of keeps you level-headed, and
that's a theory, is that it's either there to not make you freak out, but then, like I said, there are some people that do freak out over a sighting of a shadow man. Like, they get those fight or flight feelings. The hair stands on the back of their neck. they're freaked out. Whereas in other cases, like your grandmother, it's a calming effect. It's not there's no emotion. It's a non-emotional. It's kind of like a neutral.
Mm-hmm.
You're not scared. You're not excited. You're just kind of neutral.
Yeah.
Like it's no different than seeing a bird fly onto your windowsill. Like it's something so mundane and common.
You don't get excited when a bird lands on your windowsill?
No.
Oh, what a boring life you must lead.
I mean, unless it's like a vulture or something. That's awesome. You know what I mean? Like
I know. I know you. I'm just picking.
Yeah, pick. So definitely going forward, we're going to be more aware of that. We definitely need to investigate your grandmother's house.
Yes. We definitely need to investigate your house more often.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and that's another thing that happened. As we were recording this last bit, my mother comes over, and here she found, but I guess the dog was scratching at the bed, or scratching at something underneath the bed, which she has
dropped her toy or something,
yeah,
and it went underneath.
And my mom goes digging, and she pulls out a ring case, which in it is the rings of my grandfather's mother, which should not have been in there at all. First off, my mother keeps all of her jewelry locked up in her room, and there was no reason for this ring case to be in a different room underneath the bed that she cleans multiple times a week.
Yeah, it's weird. And she said there was books piled on top of the jewelry box. So
yeah, so I mean, someone would actually have to go in, take all the books off, and know exactly, because she has multiple boxes of jewelry.
Mm-hmm.
Know which box to take.
And then either accidentally or purposely put it there, like you knocked it over.
Yeah.
And then put all the books back on top of the jewelry box.
Put everything back as it is. So it's not like she was cleaning around and it fell out and it was in a totally different room.
Yeah, it's weird that, and it was it your grandfather's mother's rings? So it's another family connection there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, whether that has anything to do with the family connections that we had while investigating, or if it's just a coincidence, we don't know yet. But it's an interesting anecdote to add to this story. And
as we were talking, it's well known that she did not like my family, because that my grandfather was technically my step-grandfather. So she didn't like my grandmother or my mother. She was a very angry woman. My mother even said that she actually went after her husband in our basement with an axe and tried to kill him. So, and if I'm not mistaken, she also went after my mother with a pair of scissors when she was pregnant with me, tried to cut me out.
Wow.
So she was angry. She was that type of person. So for those particular rings, it wasn't like my grandmother's rings or my great-grandma. It wasn't my family stuff. Mm-hmm. It was her stuff.
Right.
That my mother found under the bed. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to start researching history of my house and kind of get more answers, because that's important. So
I think it's become my goal at this point to find out what's in your house and get rid of it. So this investigation really was step one in that, where we made direct contact with it. And we're going to continue investigating and try to get to the bottom of it. We're going to research the history of the house and all that, and hopefully figure out what it is so we know how to get rid of it.
Yeah, and it kind of gives us more information. I always wanted to know the history of my home.
That's always good information to have, regardless of whether or not your house is haunted or not. So I think that concludes our episode tonight. We had lots of ghosts and a little bit of aliens, and just all in all, just one hell of a weekend. Yeah, a lot more questions.
So going forward, we have a few dates coming up where we're going to be doing investigations, especially in April.
Right. Yeah. So next Friday, we're investigating the Scranton Cultural Center. We don't know yet if we'll be allowed to talk about it. So if we are, we'll do a podcast on it. If not, well, then you just won't hear about it. But we do have the White Hills Mansion in New Jersey in April, We have
like a week after we have, or
2 weeks after the Orange County Correctional Facility in Warwick, New York.
And then we have a break, which we'll probably try to use that to do more local investigations.
Yep.
There's a lot of places, as we spoke about, that we want to try. We're still interested in the Lady in White stories. We still, we want to dig up some local legends and lore.
Yeah, and if you have any Lady in White stories, please send them to us. We're trying to collect them and do a Lady in White special at some point in the future.
Yeah, and I think that's what we're going to do going forward is we're going to, that we are going to try to encourage our listeners to send us in stories. Even if it has no relation to what we're currently doing, I think it's good to have something, on file and to be able to use, because the more, I guess, information we have, the better we can come to conclusions about things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we would like to investigate all the different types of hauntings and weirdness, and so if we can add some listener stories to it, that just adds to the story, and more information is always a good thing. So with that, thank you for listening, and until next time, good night.
Good night.
The following is a clip from the basement. The only editing done to it was the removal of silent sections. For the full clip, go to our YouTube page.
Tanya went here when little.
Yes, she did. She used to come over here quite often. I'm assuming we're talking to Poppy?
I don't know. Who are we talking to?
We.
Oh, Bill. Boy.
Oh.
Can you touch it?
I'm here now.
Okay.
And who are you?
Oh. Oh.
Are you trying to intimidate us?
Can you make it glow brighter?
Watch out. Dark.
Should I turn off the light?
Do you want us to turn the light off?
Quiet. Go.
That's something different coming through.
Did you see that?
No.
It's glowing more.
It is glowing more, that's for sure.
That was
This
steady.
is mine.
What is yours?
Baby. You are little.
You are seeming to be like the baby right now. Because you won't touch a light.
Fuck.
Watch your language. There's no need for foul language.
Don't talk
I'm going to talk.
to him.
I want to talk to him.
You're in trouble.
Who is? Say the name of the person in trouble.
Light went off. It started glowing one night.
Trouble.
I'm going to turn off the light again.
Good.
I don't think we're in trouble.
No.
You
Me?
make Bill
You make Bill what?
alive.
Yes,
That
Bill.
was me.
What was you? The light? Touch-
Q? Did you see a little... Shut the light off. Shut the light off. Above the K2, did you happen to see a little glowing thing?
What little glowing there?
I saw something about 6-7 inches above the K2. It was
Watch your
it was
neck,
it was like a
Bill.
glow.
Watch your neck.
I gotta pull out, guys. I can't.
Alright.
I can't. That's a dark voice, man. That's coming over really dark, man. Holy fuck. I gotta stop. Oh my god, it's a whole different voice.
Yeah.
I'm not even kidding. It's like... Ooh. Fuck me.
The light was going.
Ooh. No. Jesus Christ, that's... Oh my god, that Bill. There's something... It's a dark thing, and it's hard. Like, like loud, like, no radio. No radio on it, man. Ooh. Fuck, I'm going up.
Yeah.